Who else excited for a book review? I hope you are, because that's what you're getting today. Hi guys, it's Samantha, and today I am back with a book review. I am here for a series review of the Farseer Trilogy by Robin Hobb. It's been a while since I did a book review, far too long in my opinion, so I figured it was high time to get back onto it and do some book reviews. So I really enjoyed this book series and I want to review it for you guys, so let us get started. Also, this book review will be split into two parts, a non-spoilery book review as well as a spoilery review discussion section, and I will let you know when the spoilers are going to occur, so that way you guys will know to skip to the end, etc., so that way you guys will not be spoiled. The Farseer Trilogy is a heroic fantasy story, and it is told from the perspective of our main protagonist, Fitz Chivalry. Fitz is the bastard son of the king-in-waiting Chivalry, but upon realizing that he has fathered a son illegitimately, Chivalry ends up abdicating the throne, thereby giving up his inheritance, and retires to the countryside, leaving Fitz to be raised by his stable master slash friend slash bodyguard, Burrich. About a year or so after arriving at the castle to be raised by his father's family and his father's right-hand man, Burrich, Fitz soon captures the attention of his grandfather and king, where he is taken from the stables where he was being raised and is put under the care of Shade, who is the current royal assassin. The king exacts a promise at the same time that Fitz will soon become the king's man, which is also the assassin to the king. Fitz agrees and begins his instruction under the king's assassin Shade, and soon begins to learn how to become an assassin, as well as learning his letters and things like that. Fitz struggles to fit in at the castle. He is looked at as the bastard. People frown upon him. He gets a lot of anger directed at him from his uncle, Regal, who abhors his very presence. So he has a lot of obstacles to overcome and a lot to learn. He can't really find his own place in this world that he has been thrust into. And basically this whole series follows Fitz from the time that he is a small child until adulthood. His struggles as the kingdom struggles against the red ships, which are kind of purging the kingdom and creating these forged beings from the populace, which are essentially soulless zombies. And Fitz is in the middle of this, in the middle of a royal struggle, and the story follows him and his story as told from his perspective and all that he had to do from the time that he was a small child to adulthood. And overall, if I had to rate this entire series as a whole, I rated it 4.5 out of 5 stars. The first book I give a 4.5 out of 5 star rating. The second book I give a 5-star rating, and the third book I gave about a 3.5, 4-star rating. But to me, all taken together, I give this book series a 4.5 out of 5 stars. This book series is written in the 90s. 90s fantasy and 80s fantasy definitely had a very different feel to it than the fantasy written in the current times. To me anyway, it's the fantasy I grew up on reading. The descriptions are very rich. The plots might be a little bit more slower paced. A lot of the fantasy stories are very character driven, and that is definitely what this series is. But if you love beautifully rich and detailed worlds, and characters that are very well formed and rich, and then you will love this book series. It was just really, really enjoyable. Robin Hobb has a way with her writing of creating extreme emotion in the reader, so you definitely feel very passionate about the characters you're reading. You'll feel very angry at times and very upset and sad. At least I did. I know I did, and I know others that have read the series have felt the same way. She just invokes a very strong emotion in the reader, which I think is a hard thing to do, and she does it quite successfully. The series is a little bit long when you get to book 2 and 3. I would say particularly book 3, there was a lot of this book that could have been cut out. Is about 800 pages. It could very easily have been about 500 pages. I still enjoyed it because I like slower moving plots, and I like plots where you get a lot of detail that other people might think might be a little bit unnecessary. But if you like plots that are a little bit faster paced, you might find the third book to be a bit of a struggle, but taken as a whole, this whole series is very, very good. She does tend to be a little bit wordy, a little bit verbose, probably a little bit more so than she needs to be, but if you like fantasy stories like that, then you will definitely like this series. She also has very well developed and well-rounded characters. Fitz is a very complex character. There's a lot going on in his head, and even the characters surrounding Fitz are very complicated. Everybody has their own motives, and everybody has distinct personalities. Everybody is definitely a distinct person. So the characters are very, very well developed, and you will feel very passionate and attached to them. This book series also has two very intriguing magic systems. The first one is the skill, which is basically this psychic ability that some people have, primarily in the Farseer line, which is the line that Fitz is descended from, what his father and uncles are. They're part of the Farseer line. They're the rulers of this kingdom. It's a psychic ability that allows you to see other places outside of yourself. So you can kind of travel to a distance of miles and you can see things visually. It also gives you the ability to communicate telepathically with other people who have the same ability. And it will also allow you to influence people's emotions subtly without them knowing it, and allow you to make them see things aren't actually there. So this has a very, very wide range that you can do with this ability called a skill. However, a lot of that knowledge has been lost. Fitz possesses this ability as well, in addition to the second magic system, which is the wit, which Fitz also has. The wit is basically a way to communicate with animals. It is frowned upon in this world. It is considered beast magic. People are killed if they are discovered to have having this ability. It allows you to communicate with animals, not necessarily talk to them, but be able to understand them and communicate with them on some level. However, most people who have the whip magic end up bonding to one animal in particular. So somebody could bond to a bear, for example, and they will fully be able to communicate and know one another, and the human can ride on that animal meant telepathically, and they can almost become one being. There's a lot of danger involved with this magic, but there's also a lot of good things, and Fitz has both the skill and the wit, and it was very, very intriguing how these magic systems were developed and their uses, and how one is more esteemed than the other, which I thought she just did really well. They're just both very intriguing magic systems that you don't see a lot of, and I don't think you see a lot of like psychic, telepathic magic systems very often. It's not like the kind of thing where you can just, you know, call something to you or conjure something up, things like that. It's definitely a very subtle form of magic, which I found very intriguing. Story itself is excellent. I was obsessed with this story. I could not wait to read more. When we finished, because I buddy read these with a lot of awesome booktubers, and when I would finish one book, I would immediately want to start the other one. So you definitely, though they are pretty well self-contained stories, you definitely want to continue on in the series. The other thing that Robin Hobb has done, she has created a very rich world. This is actually the first of 4 series, I believe, that take place in this world. So there's a second trilogy after this one called the Live Ship Traders Trilogy, and those books follow another area of this world at the exact same time that the events and these books are taking place, and how these events are affecting them. And then the next trilogy is the Tawny Man trilogy, and it goes back to Fitz and the Fool. And then there's another trilogy, which I can't remember the name of right now, but again follows Fitz and the Fool. After that is the Rain Wild Chronicles, which also takes place within the same world, but not with the main characters of Fitz and the Fool. And then lastly, the one that she has just started writing is the Fitz and the Fool trilogy, with Fool's Assassin coming out last year, Fool's Quest will be coming out this year, and then next year, Assassin's Fate, the last one, is coming out in 2016. So she has created a very rich and detailed world, and it is fantastic. So if you really love fantasy, if you love 90s fantasy, if you love character-driven stories, and really, really rich, detailed worlds, then you will really, really, really enjoy Robin Hobb's Farseer trilogy. I highly recommend it. It is one of my favorite fantasy series already. It's just fantastic. Now I'm going to move into the spoilery section of the video where I'll discuss some of the aspects that I really enjoyed and some of the characters I really enjoyed. You've been forewarned. So the spoiler section of the video, I kind of want to discuss some of my favorite characters and things. First off is going to be the Fool. I absolutely love the Fool. I find the Fool to be a very intriguing character. The Fool, we learn, is not completely human. He is part of this line of white prophets. He is descended from, have helped to shape the world's history, and they have influenced the events, and their main goal is to unite the world and create a time of peace, and basically kind of get rid of time. So the cycle of time will stop repeating and stop turning. And the Fool is just a really intriguing character. You never really know if the Fool is male or female, and I find that really intriguing how she did that and dealt with gender in these books. I thought that that was quite fascinating. I love the Fool himself. I love his wit. I love his loyalty to Fitz, and how much you see Fitz and the Fool's relationship grow, particularly in the 3rd book, is fantastic. And I think it was one of my favorite things from this book series. I just love the Fitz and the Fool, and I love the Fool so much. And it's funny because I was wondering if there would be a book series told from the Fool's perspective, and I found an interview with Robin Hobb, and she actually said that she's not going to have the perspective told from the Fool, because she feels like it would ruin some of his mystique, which I kind of understand. Part of me is a little bit sad because I would love to see some of the story from his perspective, but I totally get that. And I don't know, it's just really, really fascinating. I love their relationship so much, and the Fool is such a fascinating character, and I can't wait to read the Tawny Man series and Fitz and the Fool, because I want to learn more about them and just what is going on with them, and maybe hopefully we'll be able to learn more about where the Fool and where he's come from. Like, he mentions his sister at some point in the book, and I would love to learn more about his sister. The next thing I'm going to talk about, I wasn't the biggest fan of Robin Hobb's portrayal of a lot of the female characters. I really love Patience, which is, I guess, essentially Fitz's stepmom, if you want to look at her that way. I mean, it's Chivalry's wife, but not his actual mom. I really like how she portrayed her. She's a little bit eccentric, but not afraid to be herself, and she does a lot of good for the people around her, including Fitz. She kind of adopts him as her own son, which I thought was fantastic. So I really, really enjoyed Patience, but a lot of the other female characters I didn't much care for. Like, I didn't like Molly, which is Fitz's love interest. I just thought that she could be a little bit, I don't know, she was a little bit bitchy, to be honest. I mean, I understand her frustration because Fitz was lying to her a lot and stuff, but honestly, she just kind of drove me nuts after a while. I mean, I feel like she should have had some empathy for what Fitz was going through, because he was going through a lot in book 2. I mean, he was trying his damnedest to help everybody, and when she found out who he was and what he was, I felt like she could have been a little bit more understanding of his situation. The other person I didn't really like was Starling. She drove me nuts. Minstrel from book 3. I thought she was a selfish, mean pain in the ass. I mean, I understand that she also went through a lot, but that doesn't excuse some of her actions toward Fitz. Basically betraying him to Ketrican was just awful, and making it so his child will be taken away from him. That whole thing just bugged me, and then she tried to justify it later and was upset every single time that Fitz wasn't giving her the attention that she felt she deserved. Well, why would he give you the attention that you deserve? Because you were a complete jerk to him and you betrayed him. I wouldn't give you the attention you feel you deserve. And then trying to pawn off, like trying to convince everybody that the Fool is a female and that she's tired of them flirting and stuff like that. That's just cruel, and it was cruel to the Fool. The Fool hasn't done anything to you. It was just, oh, I could not stand Starling. Not to mention that, but just the various females that Fitz would encounter, particularly in book 3. They always seemed to like want to thrust themselves at him, and then when he didn't want them because he was being all noble, then they would be all bitchy to him. I just didn't like that. Why couldn't they? I felt like she could have just had some female characters that perhaps could have befriended Fitz or not want to have anything to do with him, but they didn't have to just want to throw themselves at him and then get upset when they were rejected. So that kind of bugged me. I feel like she could have, I think she did that one too many times in book 3. It happened 3 times between the first minstrel he encountered, the girl and the caravan he was a part of, and then again with Starling, and it was just really annoying. Which leads me on to Ketrican. Ketrican, the queen, his Uncle Verity's wife, she drove me nuts. I kind of liked her in book 2, though I thought she was being a little bit annoying, just difficult, I guess. But book 3, I really hated Ketrican. She was being overly harsh with Fitz. Fitz in book 3 had been from hell to back, and she wanted to be a bitch to him when he finally arrived with an arrow in his back at her mountain kingdom that she had escaped to. Like, hello, Fitz has been through so much. He was trying his best to keep you safe and everybody safe and keep the kingdom safe. Nobody was communicating with him. Nobody was telling him what he needed to do. And yet, they all wanted to blame him for the events that occurred in book 2. Like, really, you couldn't be a little bit more compassionate? It's not his fault that Verity left you alone. It's not his fault that you had to run from the kingdom. It was Regal's fault. So you're going to act like everything's his fault and not be compassionate because he was, you know, I don't know, tortured? And then you want to say, oh no, I'm going to take your daughter because I need to have a kid to inherit the throne. Really? Really, Ketrican? You're going to be that uncompassionate? She just annoyed the heck out of me. I'm not a fan of Ketrican. I'm not a fan of Molly. I'm not a fan of Starling, unfortunately. As you can tell, I feel very passionate about this. I really liked Shade, which we find out, of course, in the course of the books, that he is the king's half-brother. He was another bastard child from this line. I like Shade, except for by the time he hit, well, halfway through book 2 and book 3. I mean, he wanted to get upset with the decisions that Fitz was making, but he wasn't communicating with him. If people would have communicated, talked, not withheld secrets, then maybe some of the stuff would have happened. So what did they expect Fitz to do? He was on his own and he was trying to make the best decisions he can. So by the end of the books, I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't a fan of Shade, but I still love Burrich because Burrich was awesome. Burrich was very, very touching, particularly in how much you get by the end of book 2 and in book 3, just how much you realize he cares for Fitz. That was so touching, and I love, like, the little bit in book 1, I was not the biggest fan of Burrich. I thought he was kind of an ass, but by the time we get to book 3, I really, really loved Burrich, and just the care and compassion he had for Fitz and helping to make sure that everything worked out for him okay and raising him as his own son. I thought that was very touching, and I really, really enjoyed Burrich. I was anticipating that Burrich and Molly would end up together, but it still kind of surprised me a little bit. I'm a little bit sad that Fitz isn't allowed to see his daughter, and I don't know, maybe he will in the later books. Maybe his daughter will play a part in the events to come. I guess we will find out. Also really interesting, now we know more about Fool and the Fitz. Fool is the prophet and Fitz is the catalyst. He is the person that comes into the lifetime of the prophet and has the ability to change the course of the world's events and either bring it to ruin or bring it to a sort of utopian climax, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, it's just really, really interesting. Fitz and the Fool I'm fascinated by. I think the Fool is one of my favorite literary characters. Absolutely love the Fool. So, oh, I need more and I can't wait to read more. Alright guys, that was it for my discussion video. I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know in the comments if you read this book series and what some of your thoughts are and all of that good stuff. I'm excited to see what you guys think of it, and I love this book series so much, Robin Hobb. You are an author after my own heart. It's just fantastic. So yes, I hope you guys enjoyed this discussion video and this book review, and thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, happy reading. Bye!